Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Time to start the whole weekly cycle all over again. And we're back from the brink of chaos for a week long of scheduled chaos. Instead, it was another weird weekend. Trump was a little more regimented in his routine, and there was more public appearances than usual. The Charlie Kirk rally, I guess I would call it, more than funeral, was yesterday. And I think they actually did sneak him out to the golf course on Saturday so that he wouldn't completely blow his stack, having to be cooped up and do the memorial. Although it was very much, again, like a rally for him, so maybe he was excited about that. But they did sneak him out there for some Saturday golf. I think they kept him away from the press on Saturday, painted the back of his hand orange or peach, what they use for his hand. Interesting. I don't think they use the same makeup for his hand that they do for his face, which would make sense, except that they're two completely different orangey colors. It's very odd. Anyway, they continue to cover up whatever's going on there. Take him out to the golf course, let him drive around in his little cart, and then out to Arizona for what was apparently a Charlie Kirk memorial. Apparently, carried on all the networks. CNN and C-SPAN covered it. But it was, it was Sunday in America, fall-ish Sunday in America. So football, I think, was where most eyes were. Mine were yet elsewhere, but doesn't make a difference. I haven't seen anything from it, and although I've seen some clips circulating, I actually have just sort of read the brief transcripts of the brief clips that have circulated. So I wasn't terribly interested in what was going on there. But I guess, as could be expected, Donald Trump made Charlie Kirk's memorial service about himself. One thing I did discern from this was that I guess Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika, I believe her name is, gave the kind of speech that people who thought from an evangelical Christian point of view that Charlie Kirk was a wonderful a Christian motivational speaker, they just, haven't seen, for the most part, his political materials, came out and gave the speech that you, I guess, expected from an evangelical Christian who, is somewhere in the ballpark of Christianity, which is odd and difficult to find these days sometimes in a public speaker, but came out with a forgiveness speech, which is a big Christian theme. So she did it. Great. And I guess, did they have Trump speak after his widow? I guess so, because he gave a speech that basically said, I don't forgive anybody. I hate our enemies. We should get rid of all our enemies. And I think he even threw a sorry Erika in there, but I didn't hear the tape. So I'm not certain whether that was commentary on the commentary or what. But he basically gave his usual routine speech, and the memorial was about him. And I believe he even snuck in a story about one of the last things Charlie said to me was, please, sir, please do something about the crime in Chicago. And I did see somebody mocking that, figuring he probably also said, and tears streaming down his eyes, he said, please finish the ballroom, which was has been his answer for the last week whenever anybody asks him about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, yeah, it's very sad, but take a look at the ballroom that we're building. So that would be sort of par for the course. Stephen Miller gave a very, Hitler-y speech. I did see a clip of that now that I think about it, and I think that was a 2-minute clip, and I couldn't make it all the way through, I guess. And I don't know. Not certain what was going on there, but it was, I'm sure, despicable and horrible. All right. Well, Greg Dworkin is here. Things are flashing across my screen. I'm not certain whether he was trying to jump in and found himself muted, but we'll give him how about we give him a fanfare? I don't know. This one seems unfair, but what the hell? It's a fanfare. Now this is no commentary on Greg. It's just a good fanfare. All right. You all know that one.
They played that right before Trump spoke, and yes, it was after Erika Kirk. No, I didn't watch it live. Yes, I saw the clips.
Okay, you sound like a normal guy then.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, terrific. You know, one of those people who said, hey, I heard something terrible was going on. Tomorrow I'll see some clips about it, and we'll discuss a little bit about how terrible it was.
Right. So let's start with some polling. We got some nice polling over the weekend. All right.
I approve. Strongly.
I just want to point out that Trump is unpopular.
Yes.
That RFK Jr.
You need unpopular. To say that every day because they pretend like they're not.
That at least among youth, Charlie Kirk was unpopular.
Youths, they knew.
The kids, KIDZ, yeah. So fellow kids all knew that he was not a nice person.
That's a good point to point out also because that's where he was.
He was more popular with older Fox viewers, 50 and up, than he was with actual kids.
Yes, very unpopular on the campuses that he pestered.
But let's do this.
All right.
So the pundit roundup today is called "The Current Health System is Crumbling, Putting All of Us at Risk."
Oh, nuts.
And we'll talk a lot about RFK Jr.'s announcement, Trump's announcement today that Tylenol is bad and folic acid supplements are good. And by the way, my buddies sell it, but we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Let's start with American Research Group, 9/17 through 9/20, so it's pretty fresh.
Oh.
Registered voters, President Trump approval, disapprove 58, which is down 2 from his last poll. Approve 37, which is down 1 from his last poll. At his peak, that is to say, after he became president, this particular poll had his approval as high. In March as 45. It's now 37.
Skyrocketing.
Disapprove was 51. Now it's 58. Just off the peak of last month, 59. So he's not a popular president. There's other polls that have him in the high 30s. There's other polls that have him in the low 40s. But taken together, he is simply not a popular president. A point G. Elliott Morris, points out.
Mm-hmm. He's right.
Another unpopular person is RFK Jr. And this is Aaron Blake, who either left or was fired by the Washington Post. Always hard to tell with the Post.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Trump
now
fire.
at CNN.
Okay.
Yep. RFK Jr.'s poll numbers turn sour as he targets vaccines. Recent polling now shows Kennedy's numbers are significantly underwater for his performance so far. Big drop from when he was put in there. It's hard to know why he was popular. He's always been a dingbat. But supplement and wellness and healthy crap.
People love wellness.
Is popular with the public. It just is. That's why supplement stores exist. And perhaps more significantly, says Aaron Blake, very few Americans seem to have strongly favorable feelings toward him or trust him on vaccines. Well, that's important when he makes his announcements. A Washington Post Ipsos poll released Friday. That's this Friday. 3 days
last Friday. Do you know what? That was Talk Like a Pirate Day, and I forgot.
Oh.
Arr.
Well, I wasn't on to remind you.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Shiver me timbers. So, showed Americans disapproved of Kennedy's job performance 55-42. So he is underwater. Political independents were even more negative, disapproving 61-34. There's your low 30s. And even 21% of Republicans disapprove. And then finally, this poll, Washington Post, pointed out Charlie Kirk is seen more favorably by older Americans than younger ones after his death. Among respondents aged 65 and older, 43% say they viewed Kirk somewhat or very favorably. 35% say they viewed him somewhat or very unfavorably. Those are the Fox
those are the ones that heard of him.
News viewers.
Yeah.
24% of adults 18 to 29 said they viewed Kirk somewhat or very favorably, compared with 45. That's 29 to 45, who said they viewed him somewhat or very unfavorably. So if you're a fellow kid, you knew who he was, and you didn't like him. And if you were older, you didn't know who he was, but believed what you heard on Fox News, and you did like him.
That is the answer.
Now, it turns out that Erika Kirk, his wife, did say some lovely things at his memorial service, which is fine. But yes, it was a rally like the Wellstone rally. Remember that?
Yes, it was
and remember the political implications afterwards. It didn't help Mondale any. So it turns out that Trump did speak after her and basically said, you showed a lot of grace. I don't show grace. I want to, go after my opponents.
Mm.
At this rally, which was, the most inappropriate thing anybody could say, but he said it.
Okay.
So what are you going to do with that? Well, the funny thing is, and this fits with a couple other pieces that we have here, and I'm just reorganizing them as I, on the fly, decide to do things in a different order than I had planned. This is
no problem.
Trump publicly pushes Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute his political foes.
Oh, yeah.
He did that not only at the rally, but it turns out that he probably doesn't know how the internets work, the intertubes.
Yeah.
And on Truth Social, I'm going to read
his own thing.
His post in its entirety. It's not that long.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that when you read it, it reads not like a typical Trump post.
Right.
It reads like a DM that he thought was DMing Pam and instead broadcast it to the public. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
He writes, Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing's being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing's going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who was never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him, and there's a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. This is my favorite line coming up.
Yeah.
They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President DJT. Now that line, they impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times. I immediately read that and said, he's indicting his feckless, lack of feck, Republican senators
who
were completely useless, had all the information right here, could have spared the country all of this, and chose not to because they're power-hungry, spineless weasels. I just thought I would point that out. That's not an opinion. That's a fact.
Yeah. I saw, there's 20 other things wrong with the whole thing. That's a good one. I didn't stop to think about that one.
But, for those of you old enough like me to remember, without having to look it up, who John Haldeman and John Ehrlichman was, and who John Mitchell was.
Yes.
This is Watergate in one post.
Yeah.
Howard Baker would stand in the Senate and say, where's the smoking gun? It's right here. He just posted it.
Yeah.
You putz.
Right.
Impeach him. Convict him. He was impeached. Convict him.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, he wasn't. But
Watergate, here. Watergate.
It is, or as they say, worse than Watergate. And I saw lots of people pointing that out, along with a couple other things. They said, by the way, we've had 2 worse than Watergate things today, and it's Saturday. It's supposed to be a slow news day. Yeah, that was pretty remarkable. The nature of the message was really something, and it really did look like, in fact, as I understand it, he posted it, and the first time he posted it, and then he deleted it. Like he posted it, somebody screen capped it and said, this looks like he's trying to DM Pamela Bondi. Then he deleted it and
said, I love Pam Bondi. She's great. Yeah. She's doing a wonderful job.
He deleted it.
That's what I meant to say.
And then everybody said, then it definitely was a DM and he screwed it up. So then he reposted it. Although there was a change, he added the last name Halligan with respect to Lindsay. And everybody was thinking, is he talking about Lindsey Graham? Who's he talking about? So he reposted it and inserted the word, the last name of whatever her name was. I have forgotten already. I just said it 2 seconds ago. And he corrected a misspelling somewhere, though not the misspelling of Letitia James's name. But it was kind of astonishing to see. Although I was also interested in the fact that he thought that was private, and so it read differently. But it did read just as stupid as everything he does publicly. So for those who are out there, and they're probably not listening to this show, but there are definitely some people out there who think that, maybe his dumbing, that he dumbs things down even further and it's a bit of an act. But apparently this is just, he's dumb and that's how he talks. So, I mean, good to find out that. And then, of course, the bigger point, which is you're not supposed to be doing any of this. And how could you possibly be motivated this way?
Richard Nixon was, I am doing everything to help the country. And if you don't like it, you're a socialist and communist. But you're also aiding and abetting our enemies in North Vietnam. But I'm only doing what the law says I'm supposed to do. And of course, if the president does it, it's not illegal. Trump is, of course, I'm doing all of this. That's why you elected me. I'm going after my enemies.
I meant to. It was remarkable. And buried in there, we'll get to that perhaps later. I don't know. But buried in there was the firing / not firing, depending on who you ask of. Was it Eric? Is it Zebert? I don't know how the pronunciation, but that's the U.S. attorney for Eastern District of Virginia. Yeah, so he wouldn't indict.
Because he couldn't find dirt on Letitia James, so he got rid of him.
Well, yeah. I mean, he not only that, the dirt that they thought they found, he found out wasn't dirt. So
that's why he got fired.
Facing real problems. The Attorney General for Maryland now faces apparently the same situation. They thought they could bring this same case against Adam Schiff, and she's not sure yet, but she's basically saying, if it turns out this case looks like Letitia James's case and Lisa Cook's case, I'm not going to indict, and I guess I'll get fired. But I'm just letting you know that's happening.
If I did, the grand jury wouldn't go along with it.
So that's true too. Right?
I don't indict. I just recommend indictment to the grand jury. And, if you're Jeanine Pirro, the grand jury says, nah, sorry.
Yeah, right. I mean, mostly they just say, who's bringing it? Jeanine Pirro. No,
so
not guilty.
I got a video for you.
Yes. Oh, I had another note.
It's at the very, 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 very bottom, but we're not going to do that instantly. So you have a moment to cue it up. I just don't know. You know, do not try this at home, folks. We are professionals.
What am I looking at? Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. I'm ready. You talk about it, and I will press the buttons.
Yeah, something like that. So, that's all important. So that's what he's working on. And Rolling Stone had a whole story in here about how it's not really clear to Trump officials that he meant to do any of this discussion publicly. The headline reads, Trump officials didn't know if his order to prosecute foes was meant to be secret. It's like an old Monty Python routine. Why do you want to join the Secret Service? Can you keep a secret? Okay, you're in.
I guess. That's another thing, by the way. Another view into his mind is that he's like, well, this is an improper communication. That didn't cross his mind, but it is one. But I'm going to do this thing. I'm sure he really figured I don't want people to see this. Not only, so he thinks he's doing it privately. Okay, I understand that part. But the thing is, you think you're using Truth Social privately to do this. Like, even if you were 100% guaranteed that it was not going to be seen by anybody, Truth Social is not the vector for this. President of the United States has a couple of different secure methods of reaching out to the Attorney General if necessary.
Well, Pete said it was okay.
Yeah, right. And then they sent it to the Atlantic. Wow. Other note for later discussion, that one point that he makes about the attorney or the U.S. attorney for Virginia being supported by the Democratic senators. We got to come back to that at some point. But I'm going to let you roll on. I've got this video queued. You want this video?
I do, but not right this second.
All right. My
goodness. It's the
bald guy.
The president's social media post urging Pam Bondi to promptly charge his political foes blindsided top officials in his administration. So normally, when you read stuff like this, you get the impression that people are just saying stuff to the media that they have access to because they want to defend their own reputation, and they just want to give the impression that everything's under control, or if it's not, it's not my fault. However, in this particular case, it's probably true as written. They probably didn't have any idea he was going to do that because he didn't mean to.
Yeah, he may not have any idea he was going to do it.
Many observers wondered whether Trump's initial post, which capped off a wildly authoritarian week, was meant to be a private directive to Bondi. Top officials in an administration had the same question. According to 3 sources familiar with the situation, several senior officials at the Justice Department and also at the White House were blindsided by Trump's message on Saturday night. Some in the department were left scratching their heads because the Truth Social post directed at Pam read much like a text message or direct message from the president. Yeah, he texts like that.
Yeah,
one Trump
a dumb
advisor
one.
says. A lot like what he writes online.
Yeah. No real difference. So
Right. Now, he doesn't do email because he knows mob bosses aren't supposed to leave their fingerprints, but, he doesn't always get it right.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Just 100 things wrong with that one little message.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the memorial, I guess is the proper way to call it. Not really a funeral, not really a rally, but elements of both.
I don't know why they buried him in Nuremberg, but they did.
For Charlie Kirk, but one of the speakers, and this is the video I sent you to cue up.
Yes.
Stephen Miller.
Yes.
Bald asshole.
Excuse me.
Can you play that, please?
Yes, I can. That was it.
That was it.
It was a big confessional. I can play it. It's horrific. Trigger warnings to all people who don't like Hitler, I guess.
The storm whispers to the warrior.
Flowery.
That you cannot withstand my strength.
Not the Jew.
And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erika is the storm.
Stormfront?
Yeah.
You can stop there.
Erika's the storm, everybody. You can see where it's going.
The main wonk points out on Twitter, Miller plagiarized from two Goebbels speeches. The 1930 funeral of Horst Wessel and 1932's A Storm is Coming. You heard that one. Not new for Miller. He's cribbed lines from propagandist Goebbels numerous times.
Yes, plus baldness. I mean, that's not a bad thing in itself, but I think he's cribbed that from some of the Nazi hairstyles.
Right. So
Colonel Klink, I believe,
bad
is the one. Yeah. All right.
Disqualifying.
Yes, but he's not
probably
in any
he
office.
is Trump's
president,
H.R. Haldeman.
Yes, he's the president of the United States. The old
Pretty
guy
much.
is playing a role, and he's the front. He's the
and that's why things are so bad. And
abuse.
if people didn't understand, maybe they understand after the speech.
Yes, tomorrow you will understand. Tomorrow I'm off the air live, but I've been pre-recording, and I'm going to read through the latest Rolling Stone profile of Miller, and that's a main theme of it. Everybody basically saying, he's the president, and the old guy runs around and gets the gold prizes and collects medals and stuff, but he's the one running everything. And then when he speaks for himself, he's a genuine Nazi propagandist, and a Jewish one. It's a little weird. That's all I'm saying.
Capo is the word.
Yeah, that's it, with a K, because German.
Capo.
Yeah. Okay. That guy sucks.
Let's see. According to social media, Stephen Miller delivers, quote, heated remarks, end quote.
Haha, yes.
That's how ABC News covered it.
Controversial, yes. Oh, ABC News. Yeah, the official, not the Australian one, the official regime news now.
Right. So pretty bad, but it's all over YouTube. If you actually want to hear it, you can hear the whole thing.
Scott will provide it, and it's bad news, man.
Right. And so for the end of this segment, I'm going to read from one of my favorites, Chris Geidner, who is a legal reporter.
Yes.
And his
blog
illegal. Is called Law Dork.
Right.
That's the name he chose. I didn't do it. He did it.
Self-effacing, everybody. Okay. Yeah.
A sharp picture of the personal nature of Trump's disregard for the rule of law. Allegations against Trump's border czar and DOJ. And we got to mention Tom Homan.
Right. It's 25 minutes in. Yeah.
Tom Homan is on
under
video.
Arrest. Not under arrest. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And he's accepting a $50,000 bribe in a paper bag.
Food bags are huge.
And DOJ was working on the case. Trump had it dismissed. But this is Tom Homan, the border czar.
Yeah.
Okay. He's still at his job today.
Right.
Remember what I said about feckless Republican senators?
Yes, I do.
Here.
This is it.
I don't know if you just fire him or at his level, whether he's impeachable. I don't know how it works. What the hell is he still doing working? And the interesting thing here from a legal perspective, written by legal people, but read by this layperson. Okay. Is that, I think, who was it? Jim Traficante? There's others.
Yeah, Jim Traficante.
You can't accept a bribe because that's not legal. But even if you beat that rap,
yeah.
If you did accept a bribe, you have to report it as income. And if you didn't, that's tax evasion, and that's a separate crime.
That's true,
and sometimes
too.
You can't get them on the bribe because the Supreme Court, due to the governor of Virginia back in the day getting away with everything.
Right.
Nonetheless, you still have to report it as income, and if you didn't, you're guilty.
Yes, or if you did this in the Trump administration, if you didn't report it, you're pardoned, but you are guilty first.
But you're guilty, and then you get pardoned. So Homan's in trouble.
All right.
He may not be in enough political trouble because Republican senator. Remember what I said about Republican senators?
Right.
But nonetheless, he did a lot of bad things. So Law Dork, Chris Geidner is talking about this. Well, the weekend's lawlessness came following a week that featured an unending attack on the First Amendment, freedom of expression, paired with continued capitulation by both other branches of government and so-called titans of industry. But the clown car incompetence of the Trump administration, combined with their insistence on overstepping at every point, has put roadblocks in their path. The roadblocks aren't coming from the institutions or the leaders of the institutions. Trump is putting his own roadblocks there because he keeps stepping on his own feet. Trump and his policies are more unpopular by the day. People, including those with authority, need to say so. As Pete Buttigieg put it directly and simply, because he's a great communicator, Donald Trump is way less popular than he wants you to believe, and you are significantly more powerful than he wants you to think. And that's something we always have to tell ourselves. And then he goes on to the MSNBC headline, Tom Homan was investigated for accepting $50,000 from undercover FBI agents. Trump's DOJ shut it down.
Yeah. That's the bottom line of it. And I assume, if it comes to it, they'll just, who cares? Megyn Kelly has already proclaimed the Republican position on this. We don't care.
Right, which is very, helpful to have it. It's like the Truth Social. You're supposed to think that. You're not supposed to say that.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got more to do. And in addition to forgetting Talk Like a Pirate Day, and that was Friday. I could have taken care of that, but I only remember Talk Like a Pirate Day after it's passed, and I say, yar, I forgot. I missed my chance to do it, but I can only sustain talking like a pirate for so long. But also today it's the day after. Now, we weren't on the air yesterday, but yesterday was Earth, Wind, and Fire Day. This is Earth, Wind, and Fire morning, where you can ask people whether they remember the 21st night of September. It really doesn't make any sense to ask
Earth,
during
wind,
the day,
and
does
you're
it?
Fired.
That's it. Now, if he would post that on Truth Social, I'd give him points for that, right? That'd be a good one. But all right, yeah. So if you don't remember the 21st night of September, Greg Dworkin has the stories for you, and though some of them may have happened on the 20th.
Now let's just finish off this segment here with Columbia Journalism Review. ICE, that's ICE, capital letters.
Yeah, the border guys.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
Not Ice-T or
Immigration and Customs. What's the E for?
Enforcement? Ergonomics. They're just about relaxing.
Immigration and Customs, EGAD. ICE may be breaking the law to stonewall reporters. Nearly 24 reporters and other Freedom of Information Act requesters say they're getting the brush off. It's a whole story about how they're being ignored. And that's bad.
Yeah. Boo. Yes, it's U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. By the way, if you ask AI, it will tell you that ICE stands for In Case of emergency.
Yeah.
So good job, AI.
Since late December, J. Dale Shoemaker, that's one word, Shoemaker. He doesn't make shoes. That's his name.
Oh.
Perhaps back in the day,
J. Dale, Shoemaker.
That's how you get names like Miller and Baker.
Miller
Shoemaker,
come from Milos, which means
J. Dale Shoemaker, a reporter for the Investigative Post. That's in italics, so it must be a thing.
Huh.
A nonprofit newsroom based in Buffalo has filed 17 Freedom of Information Act requests with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. So sometimes you see ICE, sometimes
they're separate things.
EVP.
Yeah.
To guide his deep dives into federal law enforcement activity, deportation actions, and ICE detention centers in upstate New York.
All right.
Among other places.
Sure. Why not?
In return, he says he's gotten only documents that were redacted beyond comprehension or nothing at all. I've not received a satisfactory response to a single one of them. LA Daily News sent ICE OIA a FOIA request on January 24th for grievance forms filed by detainees. ICE has failed to provide me with an estimated date of production despite repeated requests. Axios says the same. ICE and CBP have become the centerpieces of Donald Trump's quest to deport millions of undocumented immigrants. And Chioma Chukwu, the executive director of American Oversight, a nonprofit that advocates for public access to government records, said ICE and BP and Border Patrol and Customs has an abysmal track record of transparency. They're the brown shirts. Of 137 requests a group has filed with ICE and CBP over the course of 2025, there's been the substantive response to one, and that took 7 months.
Wow.
So lots of stonewalling. It's nice to have it documented. It doesn't end the stonewalling. But again, there's supposed to be oversight committees in Congress, but Republicans are completely lacking feck, and so they're not doing anything about it.
Right. They don't love, actually exposing any of this stuff. It's not what they want.
And continuing with lawlessness and breaking things, Politico points out Trump is breaking U.S. diplomacy. State Department staffers say more than 60 ambassadorships don't even have a nominee, while diplomats are told they're being evaluated on fidelity rather than skill. Sometimes ambassadorships are plum jobs that are rewards for this, that, and everything else, but every single one of them in this case are. Yes. Usually what happens is some of the more important ambassadors actually have some skills.
Well, they're generally society types for these for these very showy posts that are political appointees. And you can at least count on them to be they're society people. They can host a cocktail party.
That's what we're interested in. And then their assistant does all the work, and things are okay.
Right. Yeah. Here though, they're kind of like basically, well, have you ever been to a tractor pull? Yes. All right, ambassador to what's left, and they probably are doing it with the thing I have, the random country picker wheel. But generally speaking, 90% of the ambassadorships went to career foreign service people, but they're all fired now, so they're handing out their jobs to. How much Trump coin did you buy? You can have.
And then the last piece in terms of breaking things and lawlessness, is Trump's actions or purported actions or reported actions on visas, H-1Bs, and this has a lot to do with the raid
over the weekend
in Georgia on Korean nationals.
Right.
And this is a piece by Noah Smith, absolute centrist.
Oh, yeah.
In his blog, No Opinion. Indians and Koreans not welcome. He usually covers economic stuff.
Yeah, and he has an opinion.
And he has an opinion about everything.
That's
opinion has opinion. Indians and Koreans not welcome. The Trump administration goes after Asian immigrants. In the past, if you asserted that the Republican Party's anti-immigration, someone would always pop up to angrily retort the GOP's only against illegal immigration.
Yeah. No.
Occasionally, someone would say that what conservatives really want is shift from low-skilled to high-skilled immigration.
Yeah. No.
And if this were 1995 or even 2005, perhaps conservatives really would be satisfied by policies that curbed illegal immigration while preserving legal. But the Trump administration has made it crystal clear it's opposed to all immigration, including legal high-skilled variety that the right used to claim to want. Just yesterday, Trump
That's
issued
Stephen
an
Miller.
executive order slapping incredibly harsh restrictions on the H-1B visa program. According to the order, I mean, the lab techs at the medical institutions, for example, generally had H-1B visas.
Yes.
According to the order and to clarifying remarks made by Howard Lutton, the Commerce Secretary, anybody who employed an H-1B worker would have to pay $100,000 to the government every year the worker was employed.
Yeah, I mean,
Not the government, just goes right into Trump's pocket.
That's certainly possible.
If
you could pay it in Trump
That's
coin.
That's his next executive order.
Yeah, I'm sure you could pay the debt in Trump
crypto,
coin.
Yeah.
There is legally speaking, there is a cap on it. I think the cap was like $4,500 a year, or I don't even know if it's a year. I think it might be a one-time fee. So they just blew right past the legal limit and threw a huge number on it to discourage everything. It caused something of a panic over the weekend because there's hundreds of thousands of people here. I don't know.
We kill the program.
Thousands and thousands of people here on H-1B, and they're working and paying taxes on their income and everything, and sometimes even initiating the citizenship process. But you're talking about several thousand people who over the weekend. He made it retroactive. Like it sounded at first like if you've already been here on an H-1B visa for 5 years, you owe that money, and you might owe it for all 5 years. So start saving up, and people started wondering, am I packing up? Am I leaving the country? My kids are in school here. I've been here for 7 years. Whatever. People were getting ready to flee the country. And then hours before it was implemented, they came out with it. Well, it's only, prospective going forward. We're only breaking the law going forward.
So this is a post by Seth Bannon as part of the No Opinion piece. As and what his summary is, killing the H-1B program would cause huge disruptions. Uproar immediately ensued. Tech industry is very international. Often the people who bring key ideas to a startup are first only able to come work in America via H-1B. Universities depend on it.
Yeah.
In general, critical knowledge workers will eventually get employment-based green cards, but that takes time and effort. As a result, a lot of very successful and famous Americans needed the H-1B to get their start in this country. For example,
they did.
And I'm just going to read the companies. Zoom founder, Udemy co-founder, Alphabet CEO, Micron CEO, Microsoft CEO, YC partner, F5 CEO, Coursera co-founder, PepsiCo CEO, Nutanix founder, Superhuman founder, AppDynamics founder, father of the Pentium, Lightspeed partner, BEA Systems co-founder, Inexception co-founder and CEO, former Intel chief engineer, just to name a few.
I'm willing to get rid of half of them.
Right. Now, there's a one-time fee. It only applies to new visas, but it's not clear if it'll hold up in court. But if it does, it'll still place a significant burden on H-1B employers and workers. And the raid on the South Koreans, by all accounts, was harsh and brutal. The raid wasn't illegal, of course. And by the way, people who write about South Korea are writing about how they are still furious with the United States for doing this.
Yes.
And it's only getting worse and putting
crazy.
pressure on their own leaders.
True. I have seen people who are allegedly more South Korea experts than me, but not only are they still furious, but people are saying they're going to tell the story of this thing for generations. This is a huge and deep insult.
Right. Well, the almost religious zeal, he writes, with which people attack the H-1B program tells me there's something else going on here. Oftentimes that something is anti-Indian racism.
Yes.
Around Christmas of last year, there's a huge battle on X between the tech right and the alt-right over Indian immigration. The alt-right unleashed a fiery attack on Indians, much of it directed at H-1B workers, 70% Indian these days.
Yeah.
Tech right won the battle thanks to Elon Musk. However,
Elon Musk
Bannon took the alt-right side.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Steve
Right.
Bannon,
Similar thing happened with with Jews 100 years ago. Some incumbent elites tried to shut Jews out of the Ivy League. Others believed Jews would not understand American values or have American interests at heart. You can see all these reactions happening with regards to Asians today, and especially to Indians. Yeah. Famously discriminatory practice at the Ivies have worked to keep Asian numbers down, something that right-wingers have actually fought against. The alt-right thinks of Indians as resident aliens, conspiring for their own profit at the expense of the nation. and goes on to indict the whole fear of the H-1B program. On top of that, Trump's poor treatment of Indian H-1B workers and Korean construction workers will end up weakening Americans' alliances with these two Asian countries.
Yes.
Weakened alliances in Asia will simply make China more powerful.
Yeah, BRICS.
Right.
Great
Solve
job.
That.
Yeah, and now they can add K to the BRICS and really spell it correctly with Korea. Well,
so
they're holding out against it, but yeah.
Let's talk about, to me, the
North
real
Korea.
big story of the
Brinks.
day.
Yeah.
Not that those other things were distractions. They're not. They're all important.
Yes.
However,
everything's a distraction.
This is the Washington Post. The Trump administration is set to tie Tylenol to autism risk.
What?
Officials will tout the drug leucovorin as a potential autism treatment in what Donald Trump has billed a very important announcement.
I did
Too
see
long,
that.
didn't read, and to show you're listening too long, here's what's going on. This is about using Tylenol in pregnancy, just about the only painkiller that's advocated for or allowed.
Yes.
Generally felt to be safe.
Okay.
Autism research says that you may have autism genes, but perhaps, this is a theory, they're triggered by environmental things.
Uh-huh.
Now, there are some anti-seizure medicines that are implicated in that theory, and people have looked at Tylenol and, for the most part, not found anything definitive. But it's always possible because, it's you can never say something safe.
Yeah.
All you can do is say, and this is from toxicologists, the way they like to put it. There's no evidence it causes harm.
Okay, that's
but
a
you
good
can't
starting
prove
point,
something
though.
safe because there's always the next study, the next thing you haven't looked at.
Right.
Okay. But if you're telling pregnant women they have to suffer pregnancy and pain because we're taking this Tylenol thing away from you for no good reason, and we'll get to that, that's bad.
Yeah.
But the second part of it is also important.
All right.
They're going to tout the drug leucovorin as a potential autism treatment. Leucovorin is a form of, or a substitute for folic acid. Folinic acid.
Okay. I mean,
it's sold as supplements. Who makes money on supplements?
Not me.
Dr. Oz and a whole bunch of other quacks who claim to be wellness experts.
Yes.
So RFK Jr. is saying, ladies, you can't have Tylenol. You got to buy from my friends this thing that, isn't really clear that it works at all, but I'm saying it does.
Yeah, okay, I get you now.
And by the way, I'll help you have healthy babies by taking vaccines away from you.
This is not looking good.
That's what's going on here. Federal health officials, says the Post, are expected to raise concerns about pregnant women's use of acetaminophen, paracetamol in England, the active ingredient in Tylenol, and one of the most widely used medications globally. Officials have been reviewing previous research, including an August review by the August Mount Sinai and Harvard researchers that suggests a possible link between Tylenol use early on in pregnancy and an increased risk of autism in children. They plan to warn pregnant women against using Tylenol early on unless they have fever.
Okay, wait for if you have a headache later, you can do it.
So we turn to an expert, Peter Hotez. Now, Peter Hotez's field is infectious diseases and specifically tropical disease. He is a well-known researcher, great credentials, saving lives all over the world with his cheap, almost for free vaccines as an alternative to the drug companies for COVID that he made. But he also happens to have a daughter with autism and has done a great deal of research. I've done the research, but he actually has done the research.
Okay.
And he writes this thread, which is instructive. Trump administration is set to tie Tylenol to autism risk. This is on Twitter, but you can read it on Threadreader, so you don't have to go to Twitter. Trump administration set to tie Tylenol to autism risk, officials say, but my view, Peter Hotez, the published evidence is not compelling, with largest study finding no association and a systematic review showing some studies linking and others not, which needs reframing. Before I start, here's a large study of 2 million Swedish kids done at the renowned Karolinska Institute, showing no association. Here's my way of thinking about it, which I wrote about in a previous book after my in-depth discussion with RFK Jr. back in 2017. His book is called Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism. Rachel is his daughter. It details the role of autism genes greater than 100 involved in early fetal brain development. We also found my daughter Rachel's autism gene, which is similar to the ones in the magazine, in the journal Cell.
Okay.
The point, we can explain just about all of autism spectrum disorder through the autism gene. Tylenol may, like valproate, seizure medicine, be associated with it. Perhaps enough to generate a hypothesis, but that's about it. But to focus an entire press conference just on Tylenol would be reckless, in my opinion, without additional information. But of course, that's what MAHA is, American Healthy, again, reckless. Also not deep thinking in terms of science. They tend to veer towards magical thinking like a child. As for leucovorin, again, maybe for one or more types of autism, but not for a spectrum linked to more than 100 genes. It would be like saying only one thing causes cancer, and now there's a cure because I took it off the market. It rings hollow. It doesn't consider the complex interactions of oncogenes or a myriad of environmental exposures. But of course, MAHA needs something generic to buy in bulk, jack up the price, pair with $1,600 telehealth visits. So probably leucovorin fits the bill, and in the end, that's what MAHA is, an economic stimulus plan for the wellness influencers.
Yeah.
And by the way, while you're there, you can get your prescription for ivermectin.
Great.
Right? So that's what he says about it. And I think that's important, and I think people need to know about that.
I think, okay. I mean, I think that's an even-handed approach to it. By excluding the kooky one, which they had a press conference on, so you can go and watch it if you need to. This is the right counterbalance. Wow. So the only pain reliever available to pregnant women, and I guess they want to yoink that off the market as well. I guess I don't know what to say, except I guess for abstinence advocates, they could say we're going to take away Tylenol for you before you get pregnant, and if you just have headache all the time, maybe you'll have less pregnancy problems. I don't know, but that's like the Foster Friess methodology there. He thinks you should be holding the Tylenol between your knees. So it's this is pretty incredible, and the really dirty part about it, as you point out, is by the way, we do have a substitute available exclusively from me, and you have to buy it in Trump coin. No issue there.
Yeah.
Blah.
Anyway, that's it for me.
Okay.
Done.
That's fine. See ya.
Back Wednesday.
Okay. More work happening, more improvement. I like improvement. Everyone loves improvement.
Did you hear the drilling?
I didn't. So I say you can just stay on, basically.
I could hear it from here, but
they're knocking walls down?
Yeah. Well, actually, they already knocked them down. Now they're putting them back up.
Oh, all right. Well, that
turns out the house isn't exactly plumb, so they have to build a false wall to make it even, so that when the tile guy comes, he has something to work with.
Okay. You don't want to turn it. I mean, the tile guy could really, if he puts the right kind of tile down, like Willy Wonka style, you can have a real interesting Zillow house.
I was just going for mermaids, but I'm going to find something on Zillow and see what we could do.
Okay. Yeah. There's lots of great suggestions in there. I think, there's some wild stuff. What's the, who's the guy on Twitter and Blue Sky who does the Friday Night Zillow stuff? Was it one of the reporters?
Oh yeah, Stephen, the congressional reporter.
Yeah, and he finds the wackiest houses on Zillow every Friday night, and there are some weird things that people put in their homes, like Mar-a-Lago, for instance. That's one of them, and of course the giant ballroom that they're adding to the presidential mansion, allegedly. All right. Okay. Well, that's it. I guess we've wrapped it up. I was going to veer off into something that we discussed
Stephen
during
Dennis,
the break.
That's his name.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for looking that up. He's a very good follow. Also good for covering, congressional activity. People are interested in that. But the Friday Night Zillow by itself is worth it. But to double back to one of the topics that you brought up, one of the weirdest things, I thought, I might as well just sneak it in there. And if the noise gets to be too much, you can always sneak off. But the weirdest things in Trump's Truth Social message, the one he thought was private, and he's said this in public as well, in a different post on Truth Social, but that he, in the middle of having fired or threatened to fire, and you really, it's amazing that he says, I fired you. No, the guy says he resigned, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and I'm not positive that he wasn't an acting U.S. attorney, but whereas the story was, well, okay, obviously Trump is firing him or wants to fire him because he won't indict Letitia James because there's no evidence with which to indict her or to recommend that she be indicted. But he said, no, that's actually not it. I want everybody to know this for some reason. The reason I think he needs to be fired is when I nominated him, and that would be if he were being nominated permanently to occupy the job permanently. If he's an acting U.S. attorney, I think it's technically supposed to come the nomination from Pam Bondi. But anyway, he wanted him fired because, I put his name forward, and as is usually the case, you now ask the senators from the state where he'll be based, Virginia, what do you think? And there's the whole blue slip process. Well, the two Democratic senators from Virginia said, actually, the guy's, qualified and not a terrible person and not a total lunatic. We approve. We'll return our blue slips on him. And now Trump says, wait a minute, they agreed? Well, in that case, I want to fire the guy. It's really the most astonishing thing ever. So just a great note for anybody who's still out there, they're not listening to the show. So you'll need to carry this message to them. I don't think anybody who's like this could stand to listen to the show. If you're still like, we need to reach across the aisle and find common ground and work with the Republicans and find bipartisan compromise, here it is. I nominate this guy. All right. I took a look at him. Yeah, he's not my ideal candidate, maybe necessarily, but sure, he's a Republican, I guess. Maybe he isn't. And that's the real issue. And Trump accuses him of not being one, which is not an actual strike against you. But you ask the senators on the other side of the aisle, and they say, you know what? All right, fine. He's actually okay. We're certainly not going to get in the way. Let's roll let's get the ball rolling and have these confirmation hearings. What? You agree? Well, in that case, I must have done something wrong. I withdraw that nomination. And I don't really know what his status was. We could look it up. Maybe that's something we can Google right now to see whether he had a hearing or not. Or, you know what? We were all raised in the day, or probably raised after the day, where we were instructed, don't look at Wikipedia for information for your book report or whatever. If you're a kid working your way through school, Wikipedia is not a source, and we're now in such an era of disinformation. Wikipedia tends to be one of the more reliable sources. Not only is there political disinformation out there, but AI slop, which will mislead you. You actually have to check your Google results, especially if you're relying on the AI answer, against Wikipedia and see whether that makes any sense. So Eric Siebert, I'm just sort of curious about his actual status. I guess this is it here down at the bottom. So he was, in fact, at the time of his alleged firing, an acting U.S. attorney, which, if I remember this whole thing correctly, when we were dealing with, Alina Habba and John A. Sarcone, III, up in the Northern District of New York, there was the acting status, and then there was interim status. And I can't remember what's what here, but I think, maybe it was the interim status ones that are supposedly nominated by the U.S. by the Attorney General, and acting is just you fill the role sometimes by virtue of the Vacancies Act or whatever, or maybe you can be named acting U.S. Attorney while your nomination for permanent status is pending. But that's what we got here. In the second presidential transition of Donald Trump, says Wikipedia, advisors to the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, recommended Eric Siebert, the guy who just resigned / was fired, depending on who you believe. Trump says, I fired you. Siebert says, I resigned. There you go. So Glenn Youngkin wild-eyed radical leftist, recommended Siebert. He took office on January 21st, 2025, right away, following Trump's inauguration, succeeding Jessica Aber, A-B-E-R. That would have been the holdover U.S. attorney from the Biden administration. As Siebert's 4-month set tenure neared, Virginia's senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner recommended Trump nominate Siebert to retain him. Nominate Siebert in order to retain him in the job. The following month, federal judges in the district unanimously voted. Remember, this is the maneuver that we went through with the other two that we were talking about, Haba and Sarkon. The judges of the district federal bench get to say yay or nay on retaining somebody in the acting job if they haven't brought this person to the Senate and approved them yet. So the following month, the federal judges in the district unanimously voted to keep Siebert in his position, and so Trump nominated him for the permanent job. The Senate Committee on the Judiciary voted in September to advance his nomination. The U.S. Attorney, Siebert, worked with Emil Bove. Remember that guy? Of course, he's on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals now, but he was involved in any number of these things. Emil Bove, the acting, where is it? Acting, yes. U.S., I'm sorry, what was his job? The acting, I've lost my place here. U.S. Deputy Attorney General and Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General on immigration and gang cases. They worked together. He was respected by several officials in the Trump administration, Siebert, and in Congress, including Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, who actually holds an important position, the chair of the Senate Committee on the Judiciary. In September, ABC News reported, just to bring you up to date on all this, we'll read us on our way out. This is the story we were discussing before. ABC News reported that Trump was expected to fire Siebert after investigators could not find sufficient evidence to indict Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, for mortgage fraud. I think on Friday we left it at Siebert announced there's just not enough evidence. I cannot put this thing together. The basic story was, Pulte, you told me that she had committed this mortgage fraud. The paperwork says otherwise. When we left on Friday, it was just bad news for their case. By Saturday, he was fired. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Well, let's see, where were we? Oh, yes, I keep saying he was fired because he would have been fired. But it's worth noting that Siebert maintains that he resigned, knowing that the firing was probably imminent, of course. He's not hiding from that. But there's a little bit of a battle as between the two of them. Trump saying, I was going to fire you, but then saying, no, I fired you before you resigned. That's actually covered here in the Wikipedia summary. In September, which is now, that would have been Friday or Saturday, ABC News, not the Australians, reported that Trump was expected to fire Siebert after investigators could not find sufficient evidence to indict Letitia James. You know that story. Bill Pulte, the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, who really should be, heard almost never with respect to the hirings and firings of U.S. attorneys, but has forced his way into everything. But Pulte initiated the plan to remove Siebert. On September 19th, that was Friday, wasn't it? 2021. Yeah, okay. Trump gave an address from the Oval Office publicly calling for Siebert to be removed. Hours later, Siebert resigned. Trump rejected that assertion, claiming that he had fired Siebert before he could resign, which he didn't. He had a speech saying that Siebert should be removed. And in his brain, I guess that got recorded as, I fired you. Didn't you hear me say angry things about you personally from the Oval Office? Obviously, that's my firing you, but it isn't. Trump rejected that assertion, claiming he had fired Siebert before he could resign, as though that made any difference whatsoever. The following day, the Department of Justice named criminal defense lawyer Maggie Cleary as his successor, which is amazing because, remember again, the direct message that that Trump accidentally posted publicly on Truth Social was all about Lindsay Halligan, as it turns out. And Lindsay Halligan is really good, and she likes you, Pam, and we should get rid of Siebert, and we're going to put in Lindsay Halligan. Now, Lindsay Halligan is a, blonde TV lawyer I guess, who has done some personal work for Trump or tried to or insinuate herself with him. Apparently, she too, no background for any of this, a real estate lawyer. I think her current assignment is she's put in charge of culling through all of the exhibits in the Smithsonian that she thinks are too woke and getting rid of those. So she was on the brink, I guess, of getting, a plum assignment, U.S. attorney job. But interestingly, they appear to have turned around and handed it to somebody else, which is interesting in its own right. So now we don't know what's going on over there. I guess if there's documentation, and I don't know that there is, Trump and paperwork, man. Maggie Cleary is supposed to be the successor here. I guess I'll look at the end note here and see where that's coming from. I don't know. Let's see. What's the note on this one? No, that ain't it. All right. I have no idea, to tell you the truth. All right. Well, let me see what's in Instapaper about that, I guess, and then we can see what to make of it. I've got a couple of things here. Let's see. There's one was the NBC News story, although I think we've heard the basics of it. But this is what I was reading over the weekend, which was Trump publicly pushes Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute his political foes. That was both in open statements and this, I guess, mistakenly published Truth Social post. Alongside the extraordinary demand, the president also named his former defense attorney late Saturday to replace the head of a key prosecutor's office he forced out a day earlier. So one accepting his framing that he forced him out, and I guess he basically did, with an Oval Office speech that says, we're going to get you if that causes the resignation. Right. So it may just be that Trump just processes things that way. I said you should be out and he left. Therefore, that's me firing you. Anyway, Dennis Romero, reporting for NBC News, puts things this way. Trump exerted public pressure Saturday night on Bondi, saying it was time for the Justice Department to take action against a number of his political foes. Problematic in its own right. Alongside the extraordinary demand to prosecute his adversaries, the president also named his former defense attorney, now a senior White House aide, to replace the head of a key prosecutor's office he forced out a day earlier. And I mentioned to you earlier in the show, the Maryland U.S. attorney now anticipates the same thing happening. That is because she, I believe, has been handed the job of trying to indict Adam Schiff on the same bogus type charges that have fallen apart against Lisa Cook and Letitia James. They have yet to fall apart in Adam Schiff's case. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but the U.S. Attorney for Maryland already signaling that it looks like it might, and if it does, I'm not going to do the indictment, and they're going to force me out. All right, so there was the message from the mistakenly posted Truth Social thing that Greg mentioned before. We can't delay any longer, yada, yada. Impeached me twice, indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now, right? Well, Trump said that people were complaining that nothing is being done and name-checked some public officials with whom he had tussled. James Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia James. He spelled her name wrong. That happens to be a common thing on the right. Comey, of course, well, here they go through the listings of why Trump hates them. I think we all know what those reasons are. Then, in a follow-up post an hour later, Trump praised Bondi because it looked like he was taking swipes at her. Pam Bondi's doing a great job as Attorney General of the United States. In a statement to NBC News, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said, President Trump, blah, 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 appreciates all that Bondi's doing, yada, 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 garbage, whatever. Trump also complained about Eric Seibert, the former acting, yes, one more time, please, acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who was tasked with looking into the mortgage fraud allegations against James. Seibert resigned on Friday, though Trump contradicted that in his post, saying he fired him. Trump, who did not name Seibert in the post, lamented that the former, acting U.S. attorney had the support of Virginia's 2 U.S. senators, both Democrats. I mean, please, you read that again. Trump lamented that the former acting U.S. attorney had the support of Virginia's 2 U.S. senators, both Democrats. That's why he lamented it. We almost put a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney, comma, in Virginia, comma, with a really bad Republican past. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But the guy was suggested by Glenn Youngkin, according to the Wikipedia profile, and everybody believes Wikipedia profiles. By the way, his really bad Republican past, I'm not certain what it would be, but if you're looking for, like, what is his background? VMI graduate, Virginia Military Institute. So, you know, probably fairly conservative guy. Then went to work for the Metropolitan Police Department in the District of Columbia. In what capacity? I don't know. It just says by April 2005, Siebert had been working for the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. In October, he married Anne Gray Cullen, a kindergarten teacher for Fairfax County Public Schools. You know, he's kind of all-American. His father is Richard Cullen, the counselor to... Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, okay, so he was recommended by Youngkin, which should, you know, kind of clear you with the Republicans, you would think. But on what basis, you might ask? Well, VMI, that's very nice. Living in Virginia, married to a Fairfax County Public Schools kindergarten teacher. Very nice. Working for the cops in D.C. You know, okay. I mean, Republicans don't love D.C. anything, but whatever. Well, okay. Here's your answer. Cullen's father is... why am I looking at Cullen? Is that the teacher? Okay. Yeah, right. Anne Gray Cullen is Siebert's wife. Cullen's father is Richard Cullen, the counselor to the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, and the state's former attorney general, which I forgot all about. Is that right? And United States attorney himself. So Siebert's father-in-law is Youngkin's general counsel, I guess, or a counselor to him. So he's got Youngkin's ear, and then Youngkin used that ear to say, "Hey, Trump, how about this guy?" And the senators didn't object. Okay, it's a little bit of a Nepo thing, but fine. Siebert served as a patrol officer and a vice investigator in the Metropolitan Police Department before resigning to pursue his law degree. He went to the University of Richmond for law school, graduated in 2009, interned? Really, not clerked, but interned for Judge Henry E. Hudson, great explorer. I thought he was dead. But that may have been Henry A. Hudson, and then Henry B, C, D, and E were born. I don't know. Magistrate Judge M. Hannah Locke, L-A-U-C-K, and the City of Richmond Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Then he went on to the Eastern District of Virginia. November of 2010, Neil McBride, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, named Siebert as an assistant U.S. Attorney for the office's Richmond Division. In 2019, he became Deputy Criminal Supervisor for the Richmond Division, and then on to Alexandria. In the second presidential transition of Trump, advisors to the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, recommended Siebert. Which ones? His father-in-law. Okay, maybe some other ones too. He took office right away. We read that part. So there you go. So now, what does Glenn Youngkin have to say about the firing of Eric Siebert? Probably nothing. It's actually a great thing, and like my vest, everybody, it's actually a good thing now to fire my counselor's sons-in-law because Trump says so. So there you go. That's where we now stand. Right. Oh, but back to NBC News. We almost put a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past. I couldn't find it. Maybe you can. In a follow-up Truth Social post, Trump said he was nominating Lindsey Halligan to replace Siebert. What did we just read in the last go-round? Oh, the last Wikipedia thing? No, Maggie Cleary. Who's Maggie Cleary? I don't know. It's not Lindsey Halligan, though, which may be a good thing overall. He lauded Halligan, who is special assistant to the president and senior associate staff secretary, which is, I guess, how she got her name in front of him. That's interesting. Staff secretary is one of those jobs which you can use to bring paperwork back and forth to the president. And AI is one of those tools that you can use to prepare a thing that looks like the president is nominating you. And if you just put it in front of the guy with the Sharpie, you might end up as U.S. attorney. Or someone could catch you and yoink your papers just before you report to work. Anyway, wow. Halligan is also Trump's point person in making changes to the Smithsonian museums. And I don't know where we mentioned it on the air at some point, but I think so. Maybe in passing. I don't know. This might be Halligan. One of the things that they were doing on there was a exhibit at the Smithsonian, I guess the American History Museum, about impeachment. Which presidents, just historically, who's been impeached, who was threatened with impeachment, what's it all about? And for some strange reason, now the Smithsonian exhibition on this was, I guess it was said to have been, I don't know whether they're slating to do it, trying to do it, whether they accomplished it or not, but they were going to erase the impeachments of Donald Trump from this exhibit. I don't know whether they actually, had the guts to pull the trigger on that one, but I do recall that being mentioned at some point in the recent past. All right. Well, let's see. In the Post, he told Bondi that Lindsay Halligan, this is round 2, second version of the Post. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. She will be fair, smart, and will provide, this is great. Punctuation is fantastic. She will be fair, correct. Smart, also correct, but he capitalized fair and smart, so incorrect. And will provide, desperately needed, justice for all. Trump said in the Post, which I guess, could I back into an explanation for that? She will provide justice for all, which is desperately needed, but you don't need commas there. The Justice Department did not immediately reply to a request for comment, but they did later put out a comment of their own. The new, I guess, acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia is actually, what's-her-face? Maggie Cleary. There's no Wikipedia entry on her. We're awaiting action on that. So I don't know who the Attorney General is, or not. Actually, I don't know who the Attorney. Well, Stephen Miller is the real Attorney General. I don't know who the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia is supposed to be, and that's weird and problematic. But whatever. So that's odd. And in case you were wondering why this is all bad, you are not. But if you wanted to pretend, or tell me more, you might say, about why this is so bad, we could take our cue from Steve Bannon. He usually does a good job on things like this, writing over at the Maddo blog at MSNBC why Trump's directive to AG Bondi should be seen as an impeachment level scandal. Greg told you it's Watergate in 10 seconds, right? A one-tweet Watergate. The president isn't just being accused of trying to weaponize federal law enforcement. He's now publicly flaunting his corrupt and authoritarian efforts. Imagine a scenario, Steve begins, in which an investigative reporter uncovered a secret document from the White House. The document, in this hypothetical, showed Donald Trump quietly directing his attorney general to manufacture criminal cases against his political foes without regard for evidence or propriety, as part of a brazenly corrupt and overtly authoritarian scheme. In this scenario, the investigative reporter who obtained this secret document would, in a normal and healthy democracy, have a scoop for the ages. What a scoop! Poof, right? The public exposure of such a document would instantly become the kind of story that would rock the political system, spark heated congressional hearings, and generate questions about possible resignations. But in 2025, there's apparently no need for an investigative reporter to uncover a clandestine plot because the president published his scheme online for all the world to see. The New York Times, that's the source he used, reported President Trump demanded on Saturday that his attorney general move quickly to prosecute figures he considers his enemies. The latest blow to the Justice Department's tradition of independence. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation. That's what's killing your reputation. And credibility. The credibility died a long time ago, but whatever. Mr. Trump wrote in a social media post addressed to Pam, meaning, of course, Attorney General Pam Bondi, unless he was talking to Pam Grier. The online missive was, or maybe Pamela Anderson, possibly. The online missive was head spinning in its absurdity. I'll be so good at the DOJ, your head will spin. Trump began his message, I have reviewed over 30, this is the President of the United States, he's busting his ass, reviewed over 30 statements and posts, by which I mean posts, saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing's being done. What about Comey, Adam, Shifty, Schiff, Leticia with a C? And 3 question marks. They're all guilty as hell. Not a thing to write to the Attorney General. Generally speaking, the Attorney General will probably answer you, well, innocent until proven guilty. But anyway, but nothing is going to be done. In other words, to hear the president tell it, he saw some, quote, posts from unnamed people who wanted some of Trump's political adversaries to be punished because they're, quote, guilty of unidentified crimes. And these, quote, posts should necessarily spur action from the Justice Department because the president says so. All of which is wrong on every level. Concluding that the same they, I think, that killed Charlie Kirk, impeached him and tried to hold him accountable for a variety of alleged felonies. The Republican concluded that he is desperate to turn the tables on his enemies. Justice must be served, now! 3 exclamation points. In case that was too subtle, Trump spoke briefly with reporters soon after, one of whom asked whether he was criticizing Bondi for not having already gone after his domestic adversaries. No, I just want people to act. The president said they have to act, and we want to act fast. We have to act fast. The answer, of course, is no, by which I mean yes. And here's me saying yes the same way twice. That's kind of what it comes down to. There's some video, I guess, embedded in a Bulwark Blue Sky post. Are you criticizing PM Bondi for not going after your... This is the video of him saying it. It's from C-SPAN. The Times report added, quote, even for a president who has shattered the traditional norms of maintaining distance from the Justice Department, Mr. Trump's unabashedly public and explicit orders to Ms. Bondi were an extraordinary breach of prosecutorial protocols that reached back to the days following the Watergate scandal. The Watergate reference is notable in large part because it helps contextualize the gravity of the circumstances. Trump isn't just being accused of trying to weaponize federal law enforcement. He's publicly flaunting his efforts. His online directive was, for all intents and purposes, a confession in which, as everything is, which he freely acknowledged his guilt. Yes, I admit that I'm pressuring my attorney general to prosecute my political foes, the president effectively declared, and I'd prefer it if she hurried up and satisfied my hunger for revenge sooner rather than later. There's, of course, no precedent in the American tradition for such explicit corruption of the rule of law. It is the stuff of impeachment resolutions. It is a brazen display of a desperate man who believes he's both above the law and freed from the burdens of accountability. The effing end. There you go. I added the last bit about that being the end, but it is the end. It's correct. He's summarized the situation accurately. So, I thought I'd share that with you. Now, by the way, I guess speaking of no evidence being found and that not stopping anybody, NBC News likewise has a lot of NBC action today. Another piece wherein prosecutors or investigators are finding no evidence. In this case, no evidence found yet of ties between Charlie Kirk's shooting and left-wing groups, officials say. And while the picture of the shooter is changing, and it looks like the evidence beginning to gravitate away from, let's say, Groyper affiliations, strictly speaking, definitely still not putting it back in the left-hand side of the court of all of this. 3 people familiar with the federal probe into Kirk's assassination told NBC News that investigators have yet to find a link between the alleged shooter and left-wing groups. Why are they looking for it? Probably 2 reasons. 1, they desperately want to believe that that's the case, and or they are being directed by the President of the United States to manufacture such a case if they cannot find it. Evidence for that? Every effing other thing happening with the Justice Department and Trump right now. So there you go. Look, if you have difficulty believing it, I can't fault you for saying something like, God, I can't believe that they're doing this again. But if the statement is, I can't believe they're doing this at all, wake up. I mean, you just watched it happen with Lisa Cook, Letitia James, and you're about to see it happen with Adam Schiff. Doesn't matter if there's no evidence. I need you to make it or you're fired. And I might even say you're fired after making it because I want to give the prosecution over to whoever just was on Fox News. All right. Oh, again, at NBC News, Alan Smith, Michael Koznar, Kelly O'Donnell, and Ryan J. Riley, we've heard his name a lot, team up on this one. No evidence found yet between Kirk's shooting and left-wing groups. The federal investigation into the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has yet to find a link between the alleged shooter, you know who he is, and left-wing groups on which President Donald Trump and his administration have pledged to crack down after the killing. 3 sources familiar with the probe told NBC News. And it won't bother Trump any. Well, I'm here for the crackdown on left-wing groups. If there's no evidence as to why I'm doing it, what do I care? The point is I'm doing it. But it would have made an interesting story to complain about. So there they go, trying to do that. By the way, you might wonder, why is there a federal investigation into this shooting? Charlie Kirk was not a federal official. He didn't hold office anywhere. Murder is illegal in Utah, and that's what they're investigating. But I guess there's some precedent for it, and I think I may have put aside a piece that sort of discusses this dynamic. It's some precedent for federal assistance in a high-profile case, but I think there's also some instructions from Trump. I'll look for a way to charge him federally. I want a federal prosecution in this case. I'm not, there's no need for it, but I think he just wants to score points doing it, and that may be the reason they're trying so hard, or Kash Patel may not have to be pushed on this. He wants to get in the limelight. Anyway, one person familiar with the federal investigation said that, quote, thus far, there is no evidence connecting the suspect with any left-wing groups. Every indication so far is this was one guy who did one really bad thing because he found Kirk's ideology personally offensive. This person continued. And by the way, the right wing is very practiced at coming to the conclusion and insisting that somebody who did some horrific shooting was a lone wolf actor, right? Every time the shooter kills left-wing targets or people that are sometimes associated with left-wing, whether it was really true on a personal level or not, they just love to say, well, if they do find right-wing connections, well, that person was a lone wolf. Well, can there be lone wolves on the left-hand side? No, because there's nothing fun I can do with a lone wolf. I need to connect it to people I can persecute and want to persecute. Please deliver that for me. In addition, 2 of the people familiar with the probe said it may be difficult to charge Robinson at the federal level for Kirk's killing. This may be the piece I was thinking of. While the 3rd source said there is still an expectation that some kind of federal charge is filed against Robinson. Factors that have complicated the effort to bring charges at the federal level include that Robinson, who is a Utah resident, did not travel from out of state. Kirk was shot during, of course, what they call an open campus debate. I don't know if that was necessarily it, but I guess that's the trappings of it. People were afforded an opportunity to challenge Kirk or ask him a question while surrounded by 10,000 of his biggest fans jeering at them every time they made a point. But, that's an open debate. Anyway, the shooter's from Utah. He didn't leave Utah. He shot Kirk in Utah. It's difficult to make a federal case out of that. Additionally, Kirk himself is not a federal officer or elected official. A Justice Department spokesperson said the investigation is ongoing, and beyond that, we decline to comment. Robinson, the name of the shooter, currently faces state charges, because it is illegal to murder people in Utah, which were announced on Tuesday. He is being charged with aggravated murder and obstruction of justice, among others, and Utah prosecutors are seeking the death penalty in the case. Prosecutors, so it's the obstruction of justice is the real killer there. Prosecutors said Robinson targeted Kirk, the co-founder of the conservative political group Turning Point USA, during the September 10th event because of his, that is Kirk's, political expression. His mother told investigators in part that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, and that's why they were hoping to find some way of pinning it on the left generally. Thomas Brozowski, who was until recently the Justice Department's counsel for domestic terrorism, told NBC News that while Kirk's assassination appears to meet the definition of domestic terrorism, finding a federal charge to bring against the shooter might be a challenge. There's no federal law that makes acts of domestic terrorism a standalone crime, although prosecutors can seek a sentencing enhancement after conviction. The FBI is frequently involved in domestic terrorism investigations that ultimately do result in only state-level charges. It's not unprecedented by any means, so not to worry. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We were just at the end of the latest NBC News piece, the latest meaning the last one I was reading, which was explaining on the way out the door, and this is, I think, the piece that I was thinking of that would explain why or what to think about the idea of a federal investigation. It does happen. As they mention here, the FBI is frequently involved in domestic terrorism investigations that ultimately result in only state-level charges. It's fine for the FBI to help out. Now, this FBI probably isn't helping out very much in the sense that, they're only out to try to find a way to federalize it and generate, if necessary, artificial links between the shooter and people or groups that they don't like. And so it's probably not particularly helpful to Utah prosecutors at all. But it isn't by itself a violation of protocol. As is always the case, a quote here, the FBI needs a federal hook to initiate an investigation, Brozowski said. Here it appears they're acting in, what are they doing? That's right, I can use the button again. Here it appears that they're acting in an assistance to state authorities' capacity. Okay. Charging documents filed Tuesday also contained a series of texts between Robinson and a roommate, whom police described as a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship, unquote, with the suspect and transitioning to female. I don't know what the evidence of the transitioning part was, but I guess they've got something. Or maybe not. And they just made it up. The roommate's identity has not been made public. The texts appear to link Robinson to the crime because, they include things like Robinson saying, I did the crime. But, that's what you have to say about it at this stage of the investigation. It appears to link Robinson to the crime. What if the texts are fake? We haven't had Robinson say, yep, those are authentic yet. So I guess at this stage you still have to say, all right. It appears that way. One message alerted the roommate to a hidden note in their residence, which read, quote, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it, according to the documents. And then the shocked reaction. I don't know how many question marks there are after all this, but there are, a dozen or more. What? You're joking, right? The roommate apparently wrote back. Robinson allegedly told the roommate he planned the attack for more than a week. I mean, that's the elaborate planning that went into it. And when asked why he killed Kirk, he said, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." Following Kirk's shocking assassination, which has sparked a wave of grief, fear, and fury on the right, Trump and his allies have threatened to come after left-wing advocacy groups that they saw as fomenting the anger that led to Kirk's death. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, said left-wing organizations amounted to a, quote, vast domestic terror movement. And then this quote from him, "With God as my witness," and you really don't call God as a witness if you're not willing to be struck by lightning, I guess, but "with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people," Miller said recently. "It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name." And that was before he got to the rally. As NBC News reported on Thursday, that effort is likely to face hurdles. There is not a lot of federal law on this. Scott Walter, president of the Capital Research Center, a Washington-based nonprofit organization that tracks progressive groups, why, and is influential in conservative circles, that's why, said then, "Frankly, the states and localities should be doing a better job, brackets, of prosecuting criminal activity, as they did in the 1960s. They have enormously more manpower. Since 2002, right-wing ideologies have fueled more than 70% of all extremist attacks and domestic terrorism plots in the United States, according to the Anti-Defamation League." And although they're, again, on the outs, good job by the reporters contextualizing this. They're doing well with this, saying, right-wing guy says this, but you also need to know that that's actually not the case, and the opposite obtains. So, anyway, by the way, pause and go back. A lot of sleight of hand from the right here, basically, in saying, well, Robinson, when asked why he killed Kirk, said, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." And the play on the right is, well, who hated Charlie Kirk? Now, the answer is about 70% of college-aged individuals, for whatever reason. Not necessarily, certainly didn't rise to the level for most people. I hate him to the point that I'm going to throw my life away to assassinate him. Only one person so far has stepped forward with that, but that's all you need. If it goes, a certain way, and if he succeeds in it, that's all you need. Could be that there's a queue of people who are willing to do this, but they're not going to step forward now. There's no necessity for it. But yeah, lots of people hated Charlie Kirk and disliked Charlie Kirk and found his rhetoric personally offensive. Are they all left-wingers? No, they're not. Or at least there's, as we would say in these investigations, no evidence developed so far that indicates that in order to hate or dislike Charlie Kirk intensely, you had to therefore be left-wing. It's not the case. But the plot here is for them to say, well, that is the most obvious answer. And so we're also going to skip from most obvious to exclusively the only possibility and leave it at that. All right. Well, at any rate, as they point out, the reporters point out, although right-wing figures are saying, well, you see, states and localities, and everybody needs to do a better job against left-wing terrorism. But as it turns out, 70% of all extremist attacks in domestic terrorism plots in the United States are right-wing driven by right-wing ideologies. Anyway, there's a graph that illustrates that embedded in it next. But back to the text. The Justice Department also said in a study last year that the number of far-right attacks in this country continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism. And in the, owing to, I don't know whether it's the influence of Lindsay Halligan or not, because I think her purview is supposed to be limited to the Smithsonian, but obviously she's got her eyes on a bigger job and moving over to the Justice Department. And at the same time, the Justice Department has, of its own initiative, and they probably didn't need Halligan's help to do this, the study that says that this is the case, that 70% of all domestic terrorism is right-wing ideology, that study was removed from the Justice Department's website in the past few days. according to a report by 404 Media, which pays attention to such things. Kirk's funeral is set for Sunday in Arizona. That has now come and gone. On Thursday, a joint bulletin authored by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Secret Service, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, and the Department of Homeland Security said law enforcement is, quote, tracking several threats of unknown credibility against people who may be planning to attend Kirk's memorial, though so far there's no concrete evidence that anyone is in danger or that the threats are real, according to senior law enforcement official. All right. And they were behind plenty of bulletproof glass, so, they did their job protecting them from threats, whether real or imagined. Okay. Now back into Instapaper, and I guess at this point have we wrapped up all of the stories about DOJ and the Charlie Kirk angle? Yes, I think so. And now I got to bring you we mentioned that, we mentioned the Tom Homan angle, and we haven't read that news yet. Let me also, before we do it, put on the record, I think we're now up to, and I'm losing count, but I think we're up to 4 Venezuelan boats blown up by the U.S. Navy at the direction of Trump. He keeps saying, I'm personally ordering this stuff to happen. I don't know why he wants to do this and provide this kind of evidence against himself at the International Criminal, Court of Justice, whatever, should he ever face that sort of thing. I don't think so, but, but he should. But I think he won't because he should, and he'll do everything he can to avoid it. I thought, and then I saw it this morning being circulated, the Miami Herald's report. U.S. naval forces have sunk a 4th suspected drug boat in the Caribbean, Trump says. I thought we were 3, and so that this 4th was a new one, but it turns out that the 4th was on Friday. The one I guess I thought was the 3rd is now the 4th, and we are, in fact, up to 17 total killed in these attacks. Allegedly. I don't know. It's claimed that this is the case. I don't know what to tell you. I suppose you got to throw some doubt on that too, but they're providing video of what look like boats and then what look like boats on fire. And he loves providing this video. The provision of the video itself might be a violation of international law, but we're up to 17 claimed dead. And I guess even if I don't get back to the story, the thing I wanted to throw out there was, do you remember this? I remember it this way. Am I wrong? The first boat that was hit had reportedly 11 people on board. And then, of course, we learned they blew up the boat, and then there were some of them in the water surviving the attack, and that the aircraft circled back to shoot them dead in the water, which is also incredibly awful. And I would assume even if you were, we're not talking about this. I don't know. I'm not certain why, and maybe just because of the pace of the outrage. But thinking about it, 1, it was just an outrage all by itself. Like, why would you be doing that? And 2, if your excuse is, well, we're at war with the people who are trafficking drugs, if that was what they were doing. But if you take it all at face value and say, yes, they were smuggling drugs. They keep saying it was fentanyl, but fentanyl is just not produced by Venezuelans anywhere, as far as I can tell. But they keep insisting it was fentanyl. I don't know why. But even if it was true that they were doing that, and it was true that everyone on the boat was involved in that, and it was true that everyone on the boat was associated with Tren de Aragua, and so therefore a criminal narco trafficking gang, and so therefore it was, even if it was then okay to say the United States considers narcotics trafficking an act of war against the United States, which is insane, but let's say they do it, and for the sake of argument, everybody agrees it is a war, even internationally. You still have, I think, international legal problems and human rights problems and war crimes problems circling back to machine gun survivors of the attack. You got some answers you got to give. Anyway, but if I'm not mistaken, my recollection is that when the first one happened, although the United States was providing no information and no evidence about why they thought what was on board was drugs or what the drugs were or who the people were, it was claimed, well, it's pretty obvious that it was a Tren de Aragua drug run because it's weird that they should have 11 people in their crew of this relatively small boat. And it did strike me as rather weird, actually. It struck me as weird if this is a drug run. My guess is that if it was, actually a drug running boat, you want like minimal crew on that. No real reason to pay for extra crew. They have to pay these guys. No extra overhead, please. Keep the payroll down low. Plus, of course, you're smuggling drugs. If you don't need 11, if you can do it with 2, and they did say that was one of the things. Well, the reason we suspected it is there was 11 people on there. You could crew a boat that size with 2 or 3. So 11 is weird. Well, it is weird. And now we are up to 17 dead over 4 boats, which means, 17 minus 11 equals 6. 6 people had to be killed across 3 more attacks. Obviously, that, you could do it by average, and then, think about a boat crew. It's going to be pretty minimal. So we're probably looking at 2 people on each of the next 3 boats, which are accused of exactly the same thing. Nobody has circled back to say, question. 3 out of the 4 boats have been crewed by 2 people, which is what you initially said should have been the case. You thought that the boat with 11 people on board was suspicious because it had 11 people on board. Now, the next 3 you sank had 2 people on board, 2-man crews, just like you said should have been the case. Have you figured out what the other 9 people were on board for? What was going on? Yes, all Tren de Aragua was a Tren de Aragua convention, a corporate event. They were, no, but no questions either, as far as I can tell. So what's the deal? Did we sink the first one because it had 11 on board, or did we not? Did we sink the other 2? Well, they're not going to do 11 again because they know they're going to get killed. You see, that's what we're, that could be the claim that they're making. They're already making jokes left and right. Every opportunity they get, they repeat the same joke. I wouldn't even be out fishing if I were you in Venezuelan waters, which, by the way, waters, mush-brained Trump. I did see a clip of him saying, well, they were doing... We're very strongly stopping the drug trade. They were doing the water drugs. They were moving the water drugs. I call them water drugs. That was he screwed up and he threw water in there. He wanted to make the joke about don't be on the water for any reason. And he blurted out water drugs and then says, I call them water drugs. He does not call them water drugs. Now he's going to start calling them water drugs. But this is basically kov-fe-fe. That's a real word. I call them the water drugs, and we shouldn't be out there water fishing, which, by the way, I would say probably accounts for the vast majority of fishing, water. So, I don't know. He has water on the brain, like water on the knee, except on the brain, and it's exerting pressure and exacerbating his dementia. So, there you go. I got to look that one up. I got to get the water thing, and I commented on it yesterday because, really, please, I call them water drugs? No, you don't. And if you do, you should be hospitalized. Anyway, so that's the news on the report on it I have handy. I don't have handy because it's from the Miami Herald, which generally speaking does not lend itself to handy use. But this time I guess they've given us they gave us the token to get through. So that's nice. We should acknowledge that. Thank you very much, Miami Herald. Antonio Maria Delgado writes, U.S. naval forces have sunk a 4th suspected drug boat in the Caribbean. That's a Friday report. And the strike marks the 4th such attack on suspected drug smuggling boats since the Trump administration launched a major military deployment in the region aimed at disrupting narcotics networks. And as he said, with all these things, on my orders, the Secretary of War ordered a lethal kinetic strike, I think he likes that word, on a vessel affiliated with the designated terrorist organization. This is not something he wrote. It was written for him. Thank you, Stephen Miller. Q Stephen Miller.
Bald asshole.
Right. This is blah, blah, blah. They were conducting narco trafficking in the, ready for this one, U.S. Southcom That's the terminology. U.S. Southern Command, area of responsibility. Trump wrote on his Truth Social account, or someone wrote for him. 3 men aboard the vessel killed in this strike. So that, I guess, means that they weren't 2 apiece. So somebody must have been on solo on these boats. Anyway, did not specify the exact location of the strike, didn't name the terrorist organization allegedly involved, or which branch of the military conducted the operation. He only cited Doral-based Southern Command, Doral, which oversees military operations in Latin America and the Caribbean. Is there mention of the water drugs in this one? No, I don't think so. Okay, you get the idea. I wanted to move on to the Tom Homan story and get the details of that one on record because of how ridiculous it is. And then I got a couple other things, but I don't know whether we'll have time for them or not. What do we do? New York Times or MSNBC? We did a lot of MSNBC and NBC. NBC will probably, that's the longer report. I didn't realize that was the case. Is that right? Fine. We'll use them on this occasion because everybody's upset with the New York Times for various reasons. Who wrote the New York Times article? I am a little bit curious about that. That may now make a difference in whether we share that one. Let's see. Just going to open it up. Their headline in the New York Times: Trump Justice Department closed investigation into Tom Homan for accepting bag of cash. I like that. Bag o' cash. Devlin Barrett, Glenn Thrush, Alan Feuer, Maggie Haberman, and Hamed Ali Aziz. So an all-star lineup there, too. But MSNBC has it from Carol Leonig and Ken Delanian. So an interesting crew on that side as well. Tom Homan was investigated for accepting $50,000 from undercover FBI agents. Trump's DOJ shot it down. Well, they may have shot it down, too. But they shut it down. The FBI and justice officials closed the investigation, which a Justice Department appointee had called a deep state probe in early 2025. So because it was conducted under the Biden administration, it was deep state and therefore fake, and that's why we closed it. And by the way, in case you were wondering, who meddled in it for the DOJ and said, yes, let's shut this down? Emil Bove. But a little too late now. He's a judge on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. So, in an undercover operation last year, the FBI recorded Tom Homan, now the White House border czar, whatever that actually means, accepting $50,000 in cash after indicating he could help the agents who were posing as business executives, like Flabscam, I guess is going on here now, win government contracts in a second Trump administration, according to multiple people familiar with the probe and internal documents reviewed by MSNBC. The FBI and the Justice Department plan to wait to see whether Homan would deliver on his alleged promise once he became the nation's top immigration official. Wow, that's dangerous. But the case indefinitely stalled soon after Donald Trump became president again in January, according to 6 sources familiar with the matter. I'd love to investigate, just get questions and answered at the congressional level, if you can get the Republicans to agree to it, which you can't, to ask these questions, right? I mean, Normally, you'd say, all right, well, he accepted the cash. Now we have to see whether there was a quid pro quo. We got to wait for the quo. Does he deliver the quo? And then we'll do it. But really, it's illegal to make the promise and accept the cash. I don't really think you have to wait for the quo, but I guess that's just the final nail in the coffin. But I mean, it's amazing because you might, under other circumstances, have been able to say, well, the president isn't just going to totally cover up for bribery charges on videotape against one of his top officials. Duh, yes, he is. But ordinarily you would say, well, no, that's just too brazen. But we were in the middle at that time of watching Trump execute a strategy of delay in the hopes that I win the election, at which point I will order all the cases against me to be dismissed, at least all the federal cases. And that, it's going to get in the way of everything. And you can't question me, and I've got immunity. I mean, there's a million things he was doing to get out from underneath these charges. The question of waiting for the quo to come around, like, well, suppose it does. He's just going to pardon the guy. What are you doing? Is this wise? Shouldn't you be pressing these charges now? If he later dismisses them, then at least you've got that. But no, they decided to wait. And I guess I would want to ask that question. Who decided that and why? But instead, we're going to get the answers to, well, who dismissed the charges? Emil Bove. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. What could I do? The FBI and the Justice Department planned to wait to see whether Homan would deliver on his promise, but the case indefinitely stalled after Trump gained the power to get rid of it, and he did, according to 6 sources familiar with the matter. In recent weeks, Trump appointees officially closed the investigation after FBI Director Kash Patel requested a status update on the case. 2 of the people said. It's unclear what reasons FBI and Justice Department officials gave for shutting down the investigation, but a Trump Justice Department appointee called the case a deep state probe in early 2025, and no further investigative steps were taken, the sources say. The federal investigation was launched, and by the way, just show how ridiculous it is. Well, we want to wait to see whether he delivers on the quo. All right, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to investigate and we're going to keep watching him. So once he gets the job in January, presumably, we'll keep an eye on him. Well, did you consider that the person who will be your boss will tell you starting in January of 2025, don't keep an eye on him? I hadn't thought of that. Okay, well, that seems like a mistake. So the federal investigation, by the way, launched in western Texas in the summer of 2024 after a subject in a separate investigation claimed that, if you wondered, was this an entrapment thing? No, because this suspect claimed that Homan was, in 2024, already soliciting payments in exchange for awarding contracts should Trump win the presidential election, according to an internal Justice Department summary of the probe reviewed by MSNBC and people familiar with the case. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Texas, working with the FBI, asked the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, which has been since disassembled, to join in its ongoing probe into the border czar and former acting Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Tom Homan, and others based on evidence of payment from FBI undercover agents in exchange for facilitating future contracts related to border enforcement. I mean, it's all right there. Homan, who served as acting Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement early in Trump's first term, openly claimed during the 2024 campaign that he would play a prominent role in carrying out Trump's promised mass deportations. Yes, we remember. Asked for comment about MSNBC's exclusive reporting, thank God we're reading it, the White House, the Justice Department, and the FBI dismissed the investigation as politically motivated and baseless, unlike the dismissal of it, which was politically motivated and baseless, I would add. In a statement provided to MSNBC, FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, remember him, said this matter originated under the previous administration and was subjected to a full review by FBI agents and Justice Department prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any criminal wrongdoing except for the videotape of the criminal wrongdoing. The department's resources must remain focused on real threats to the American people, not baseless investigations. As a result, the investigation has been closed. And I guess if you just do that in a suit, that might be enough these days. White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson slammed the probe as blatantly political investigation, which found no evidence of illegal activity. It's yet another example of how the Biden Department of Justice was using its resources to target President Trump's allies rather than investigate real criminals and the millions of illegal aliens who flooded our country. What do they say about the videotape? I don't know. Nothing. Tom Homan has not been involved with any contract award decisions. He is a career law enforcement officer and lifelong public servant who's doing a phenomenal job on behalf of President Trump and the country, she added on behalf of Homan, a senior White House employee. Homan did not reply to a request for comment. Undercover FBI agents, here's where the problem lies, posing as contractors, communicated and met several times last summer with a business colleague who introduced them to Homan and with Homan himself, who indicated he would facilitate securing contracts for them in exchange for money once he was in office, according to documents and the people familiar with the case. See, if the money came when I was in office, then I'd do it. But you gave me the money too soon, so I can't help you. No crime. No. On September 20th, 2024, with hidden cameras recording the scene at a meeting spot in Texas, Homan accepted $50,000 in bills, according to an internal summary of the case and sources. FBI agents and the Justice Department prosecutors took no further investigative steps in the final months of 2024 and expected to keep monitoring Homan to determine if he landed an official role and would make good on steering contracts in a future Trump administration. When special agents in Texas began probing the subject's claim that Homan was soliciting bribes, the White House border czar, 63, was president and owner of a private consulting business that said it could help companies in the border security industry win the government contracts. So you see, he was in the business of accepting payments in exchange for contracts later on. So therefore, no harm, no foul. Isn't that something? I guess that's the claim. Homan often accompanied Trump on the campaign trail in 2023 and 24, and for months before the presidential election, he publicly touted that he expected to oversee implementation of Trump's immigration policies. Trump comes back in January, I'll be on his heels coming back, and I will run the biggest deportation operation the country's ever seen, Homan said at the National Conservatism Conference in July of 2024. Several FBI and justice officials believed that they had a strong criminal case against Homan for conspiracy to commit bribery based on recording him accepting cash and his apparent promise to assist with contracts. According to 4 people familiar with the probe, Homan could have been charged with a crime then, legal experts say, but his case was unusual. He was not a public official, and Trump was not president at the time that he accepted money in the FBI's undercover sting, so his actions didn't clearly fit under a standard bribery charge. Oh, they found a great loophole. Top officials privately debated the possible charges given Homan's status at the time, people familiar with the case said, but several concluded it would be better to continue to monitor his actions once he was back in office. And according to a document reviewed by MSNBC, justice officials were eyeing 4 potential criminal charges in his case: conspiracy, bribery,
Radio.com,
and 2 kinds of fraud.
You have been listening
2 kinds,
to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
All right, it is time, of course, to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We're out of time to read this piece. There is more. We'll come back to it tomorrow. I'm off the air live. It's Rosh Hashanah, but I've got a piece ready to go for you tomorrow to keep you company, including that Stephen Miller profile promised earlier. Now, time for Justice to take it for the rest of the day. We'll see you Wednesday.